screen right now. You know, I've been kind of toying with this topic all week, and there's always that presentation you prepare, and then there's that presentation that you deliver. And as I was looking at the content that I had prepared, I'm like, something just isn't right, And I'm like, come on, Lord, what's going on? What do I need to do? What can I share with you today that you're just not going to Google search, right? There's so much stuff out there on the information highways. How can I make this different? My intention today is to inspire you to take action, to give you a piece of information. We're always learning a variety of new things, and yep, that sounds good. Yes, that's good. And yet, the magic happens in implementation. So my goal for you today is to take something away from here that you're going to want to implement to help you with your high-performing teams. So let's go ahead and get started. And I want to share a story. When my daughter started college, they were big into team assignments. Can any of you relate? Right. So we have these team assignments. And with that, the teacher they assemble a group of people together and they say, go at it. Here you are. This is what you need to work on and to build and to do. Well, I'm only getting my daughter's side of the story, I know, but nobody's doing anything. I'm doing all the work. Everyone's going to get a good grade because I'm doing everything. And when you assemble a group of people like that and you put them together, it's much like putting a puzzle together until you actually fit the pieces and put them in place. You don't have a finished product. You're not achieving the goal that you set out for. So putting together a team is really about helping others understand their role, providing expectations, setting standards, looking at those things that will drive the results. So you see, no one succeeds alone, and nobody fails alone. So we're going to dive into the high-performance virtual workforce. Virtual workforces have been happening around the globe for several years. In the past, we've been accustomed to maybe working with a sister company offsite. We have an IT vendor offsite. We have all these other people that we've been working for. But COVID-19 made a big impact and took virtual workforce to a new level. People that were accustomed to working side by side with each other, being able to go and ask questions of each other, that went away. We're socially distancing. We're keeping our people safe. So we're going to throw a poll up there. So we're going to start our first poll. And what I'd like you to answer is, what impact has this virtual workforce had on your business? So as you see the poll upon your screen, has it increased production? Has it decreased? Low employee morale? Inefficiencies? No change? Go ahead and take a moment. Let's see. As we're taking the poll, Shante, are you able to see the poll results?
I see the poll results, Lisa, and 100% of the people have increased production.
Increased production, fantastic. And that's what some of the businesses are finding, is that people that are working from home, they have less distractions. Think, how many times have you been working and someone comes over to your desk, or the boss needs something, or there's other things that are transpiring, and we find ourselves being distracted. When we're able to work at home, we do have that ability to increase production. One of my clients was sharing that he has an employee. All she ever wanted to do was throw me in the corner and let me do my work. Well, she found out that that's really not who she wants. I don't want to be in a corner just doing my work or in my cubicle. I want to deal with people. So we are finding in some senses that there's a decreased morale that's happening. And again, depending on your business, you may be seeing decreased productivity. And yet, hopefully today there will be some information that will help you to identify preparing for continuing to work at home, because in the beginning we were just like, okay, you're working from home, and there was no preparedness. And now, as we've been doing it for a little bit longer, we're seeing the nuances, what works, what doesn't work. Our objectives today are to really look at the characteristics of a high-performance team, specifically a high-performance virtual team. And this series really could be called communication, because communication is key. How effectively are we communicating? How often are we? What tools are we using? And then there's creating teamwork. We're not in that building together. We don't have that camaraderie. And yet, how do we create teamwork? And as we start thinking about, first of all, what is a high-performance team? Specifically, a high-performance virtual team. A lot of the characteristics and a lot of the definition is the same. It's just identifying it from a distance. They're a focused group of people that are working towards a common goal. Keyword there is a goal. We have goals that we're working for. Everybody knows what the goal is, and we're working together to achieve them. We're connected. We're understanding who we serve and what the greater purpose of us coming together are. It's kind of that difference of that team that's working well-oiled together versus that group that my daughter experienced in the school, just throwing a bunch of people together, that everyone's kind of doing their own thing or off in their own space. But this is creating that focus, working towards that common goal. They take pride in their team and the ability to reach the goals. There's effective management. There's creative thinking. People are acting dynamically. Keep stuff fresh, relevant. They're working together collaboratively. They're trusting each other. We're building trust. Our team members need to trust the team leader and the team as well. And when we have that mutual trust and respect, it unites the teams together. And then we're able to work efficiently and quicker together, picking up the pieces and moving each other around in how do we operate over here, because there may be a change and we're flexible at switching over here, so we learn to work together instead of everybody in their silo doing their own thing. How do we collaborate? But each member of a team is an essential component. Your hand, you have all your fingers together. Each one represents a component. But every team member has a different skill, a different talent, something unique that they bring to the table. Personality traits, right? And how we meld with the other team members. And it starts with who's on your team and identifying your team. Some of you may think, I'm a solopreneur. I don't have any team members. I just work by myself. Yet, your network is your team. Sometimes it's your family member, your friends. Who can you collaborate with? So we have vendors that if we don't get what our supplies are, they're on our team because we can't function without them. Our staff is all part of our team. Our customers. They're essential people that are parts of our team. So focus on identifying who that is and where do they fit into the goals. What are their skills and their abilities that they bring to the table? And sometimes we might have Sally on our team and we're not quite sure what Sally's bringing to the table. How is she contributing to the overall part of the team? And we need to find out. What is Sally's skill set? How is she contributing? Or maybe there's a vacancy. You might be able to see the question marks in one of the bubbles on the slide. There may be a vacant position available, a marketing rep or a banker. And if you're not able to do those things in-house, maybe it's outsourcing some of those. But again, who's on your team? What characteristics are you looking for people on your team? We just talked about trust, honesty, all these other characteristics of defining a team and yet being goal-oriented. Do they have ownership? Do they have clarity on where we're going, how we're working together? Excellent communicators. How are we effectively communicating? Are we flexible? Do we have commitment? So we're going to throw up another poll question, if we could please. And it's really kind of a statement. It's a fill in the blank. So as you see that poll come on your screen, excellent communicators. What's a skill of an excellent communicator? Provide feedback. Do they proactively monitor and provide updates? Listen effectively, or all of the above? Take a moment. All right, what do the poll results reveal? Benita, what are we seeing in the poll results?
Lisa, it looks like 100% of our participants have voted for D, all of the above.
All of the above. Absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent communicators, they provide feedback. They set the vision for the goal and what we're all working towards. We listen effectively. Oftentimes in communication, we hear talk, 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 much like I'm doing today. Talk, talk, talk. And yet, being able to listen effectively. And when we're looking at virtual teams, we don't always have that ability to be on the phone, to hear what people are saying, to listen to their tones of voice, to see what's not being said and how do we fill in the blanks. A lot of times we're sending emails back and forth, or we're just having messaging, whether it's Slack or other options, Microsoft Teams, however you're communicating. And so being able to listen for what's not being said, or read between the lines, so they say, is very important. And yet also monitoring, providing feedback and updates. Not just when it's too late, something's falling apart or going south. It's keeping track on where everybody is and how they're doing in achieving that goal and where they stand into line. Giving feedback is an important part of being able to communicate. We have to be able to give effective, constructive, as well as positive recognition. And when we're working with a team members building that rapport where they can actually give that feedback to each other, not just coming from the manager or the supervisor or the business owner. And yet sometimes we need to create that safe environment, all the time we need to, where they're comfortable giving that feedback back and forth to each other. So communication is key. Like I said, this whole virtual teams and working from home should all be communication. It's frequent, it's clear, and we'll take a look at some other options on how we can communicate with each other. And yet also, characteristics of a high performance team are people that are flexible. Someone might be out sick. Someone may be off for the day. The customer might change their order. Whatever that is, we need to be able to shift. We need to be able to be flexible to take on something else. But also a part of flexibility comes into play with cross-training and making sure that people can handle another person's role if they call in sick. But sometimes we have equipment changes, a process change, a leadership change. We need to be able to make sure that we're flexible and that we're willingly able to move on to something and to help and to participate to bring the team where it needs to be. Because if we're operating as a group, I'm doing my own thing, right? This is my job. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm just going to do what I was called in to do, right? That's people operating on their own. But when we're together as the team, it's coming over and helping on this part, or adopting here. So we want to make sure that we're able to. And we want to also have commitment. Sometimes right now we're hiring to fill seats. We're just hiring, we have a need, we're filling a need. We just need somebody to come in and answer the phones. We just need somebody to come in and operate the machines. So we're filling needs. And yet, how do we get people to commit? Giving recognition. Great job. Asking for their input. Assigning them an important task. There's things that we can do to build commitment with people because those personal needs, they want to feel valued, they want to feel respected, they want to be appreciated. And when we can start demonstrating that, it builds the trust. And when we build the trust, we get the commitment. So how do we build trust? First of all, making sure people are able. Do they have the skill set and can they demonstrate the competency? Because that builds trust among the team members. If you ever get someone online that doesn't know what they're doing, or they come into the team and they don't know what they're doing, and the other people are like, I'm not going to have them help me, they don't know what they're doing, that's not setting them up for that cohesiveness. So are they able to demonstrate with competence the skill? Have you provided that training? Virtual training right now is a little bit challenging for some folks. And yet we still need to utilize and implement our tools to train. Systems, checklists, videos, logging in with them on a virtual screen. Have them watch you do it. Then you do it together. And then you let them do it as you're observing. Because virtual training is a little bit challenging. And let's not yet let that be a crutch as to why we're not training up and giving somebody that skill set to set them up for success and to be an integral part of the team. Believability. Are they honest? Do they act with integrity? Do they do what they say they're going to do? How do they treat others? Right? Do they own up to their mistakes? This is all part of believability. And when you're looking for those characteristics, when you're looking for that team member, you want to look for some of these traits within folks. The C is connectedness. Again, that caring about others. Back to openly communicate. I remember working in an industry, and there was only 2 of us that worked in the bookkeeping. And one day over the weekend, one of them just quit. And I was like, okay. They just quit, and now there's all of this information that I need to find out because they never shared their knowledge with anybody else. They kept all that knowledge in their head, and actually when they quit, they actually took all the manuals with them too. So I was kind of a little struggling there. And yet that information that was vital to the success of our team was gone because they kept it all harnessed inside. So being able to communicate and feel confident that I can teach you what I know and I'm okay with it because I care enough about the company, I care enough about other people to help them succeed, and I'm sharing the information. And are they dependable? Going down to D, dependable. Sometimes dependability is not just showing up on time. It's being reliable. It's being trustworthy. So when you're looking at building that trust, can you rely on me? Can I rely on you? What does that look like? With the technology that we have in place, right? We have the means to communicate on a dime. We can stop what we're doing and get some information out there. They don't have to wait till the next day. We live in this world of instant gratification, right? But being able to communicate effectively with other people helps us to keep them in the loop, to keep them trained. So utilizing those resources. But it's not just all about business when we're keeping people in the loop. We want to find out a little bit about them personally. Before the call started, we were talking about the mental well-being that all of this pandemic and shutdown and three week pause, and how this is all playing a role on how people affect and are affected by this. So how are you following up with people and checking in on them, just saying, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? Is your family okay? Because we want to build that trust, and we want to demonstrate how much we care, because this is a time when we're working with our virtual teams that it's high touch. And when I talk about high touch, it's reaching out. It's reaching out to the customers on our team, the vendors on our team, the members, the staff on our teams frequently, and asking, hey, how's it going? Make notes of what you're learning from them. Because really, people don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care. Because there's really the three things. Can I trust you? Do you care? And how can you help me? So think about those questions as you're reaching out to your team members. They want to know that you're genuine and that you care. And they need to care for each other. That's what makes it a high-performing team. That what takes and puts that puzzle piece together, creating the finished products. Communicating, identifying where they fit into the puzzle and how they connect. So we have different types of communication, methods of communicating, I should call this, versus types of communication, because we've got the virtual meetings. Virtual team meetings are amazing because you can actually see people. What are your expectations and standards that you've set forth when you're having these virtual meetings, whether it's on Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts? Do you have them have their camera on? Are they muted or unmuted? Do they get to share in the communication? Utilizing your chat. We've had a couple of polls. And oftentimes when I'm training on a Zoom, I'll say, put one in the chat room. Again, gets them engaged, asking their opinion. Unmute yourself and tell me a little bit more about that. What virtual team system are you using? And how are you acting to get those people engaged, to get your team members engaged and get them on board? Sometimes it's a telephone conference. It's picking up the call. Our cell phones have the beautiful ability to conference people in. And yeah, office phones do. And we also have free conference call lines. So if you want to get everybody on the phone and just have a conversation, there's the ability to do so. Now, the one thing about the conference lines that's a little bit more challenging, you can't see their body language. Because like I say, these are methods of communication, but the types of communication are verbal and nonverbal. We've got our tonality. And so when we're on the telephone conference, we can't see that person's body language or that face. So we have to listen, going back to part of communication, which is effective listening. We have to listen to their voice, listen to their tone. Do they sound all of a sudden shocked or angry or excited? So telephone conferencing is a method of communication that helps us to all stay on the same page. And yet we also have our email communication. Again, now we can't hear tones. Now we can't see facial expressions or body language. We're reading what is sent up. So when you're using email as your primary method of communicating, is the message clear? Sometimes we write an email a couple of times before we send it, and think about the team members and what was your last interaction with them? And if your last interaction with them maybe wasn't pleasant, that's how they're going to read that email. So you want to make sure that you're very clear with the email communication. And set yourself a policy, because sometimes we get caught up in this email game, this email trap. I'm going to send you an email and you're going to email me back. and I still don't understand, so I'm going to email you another question. And by this time, we're going back and forth, back and forth. Pick up the phone, get clarity. Don't spend 20 minutes going back and forth, have the conversation. And yet, email also allows us the availability to communicate frequently. Establish a policy for communicating and emailing back and forth. When I was a support analyst and I worked with CFOs around the country, we would have a 24 business hours to respond to an email request. Now, 24 hours may be too long, but again, we were in different time zones. We were all across the United States and Canada, and so that offered opportunity to answer the emails, because we're not just glued to our computers. We're just not glued to our phones and our email. We have other tasks we need to complete. So establish criteria on what is acceptable email response. Because sometimes you get that email and 2 or 3 days go by, you haven't heard from somebody, and in this world of technology, did they even receive the email? Back in the day of faxes, that was always the thing. Did it come through? Another method of communication is the internet and web pages and social media. That may or may not be acceptable ways to communicate in your business, but that's what you would have to identify. And again, having a policy and clarity on how are we going to communicate. Sometimes social media is a way for our team members to bond, or they're in a group chat together, or a group messenger together, so that they can communicate back and forth and get responses and answers instantaneously. And yet what we had for lunch isn't something that requires instant messaging back. So how does that work? How do you communicate? There's also tools that are called Slack. That again is another way to communicate, and depending on what information your team members need to share with each other, Slack may not be the one that you would want to utilize for a project management. That may be a Trello or some other form of being able to have a live document, everyone in it working on it. So it's going to depend on if it's project management or if it's just that ability to communicate back and forth on a project throughout the course of the day that works. And you know, a method of communication that's not on here that helps build teams, build trust, especially in the virtual world, is good old snail mail. A genuine thank you note. A way to share with each other appreciation that you're on the team. How much mail do you get that's personal? And when you get something, a card, and you open it up that's giving you gratitude and thanks, it has a little more special meaning. So when we talk about being high touch to build the teams, to create that camaraderie, don't think it be forced, but yet there's other ways that you can help with building that teamwork and getting people in together and communicating with them and showing them how to communicate with each other to build that trust. When we talk about creating teamwork, right, it's the ability to come together to work on a common goal and a common vision. Sometimes we have departments within our team, and the departments have goals that impact the goal of the bigger picture. And when we pull these people together to work as a team, think of a sports team. They work collectively together. They pass the ball. They communicate the plays. I am not a sports person by any means. Some of these things I've learned by watching my husband, yet they all work as a team. And I also know that when I've seen my husband watching sports, if one of them goes out there and tries to be the superstar, it has an impact on the rest of the team members. I'm going to be the superhero and I'm going to take all the credit because we won the game. That's not working as a team. But we're working collectively towards the vision. So when we think about having the clear responsibilities, does everybody understand what their role is on the team? So we have the defined roles. We have clear responsibilities. Oftentimes as leaders, as a team leader, because sometimes you might have somebody that's in charge of that project. You have somebody in charge of that, and they can delegate the tasks, but they can't delegate the responsibility of getting it done, that's still on the person that's leading the team. And so does everybody know what their responsibility, what their role is? There's a book that's written called Extreme Ownership, and I love that book. I reference it a lot. So if you were here the other day, you may have heard about it too last week. Extreme Ownership talks about this elite team of Navy SEALs. These two gentlemen were Navy SEALs, and they took the characteristics to be on that team and transposed it to business. But the thing that I took away from there is everybody needed to understand the mission, which that's your goal, the mission. What are you looking to accomplish? And the second component that I took away from reading that book was everyone needed to understand their role on the team. Because sometimes if people don't understand the roles, we get into this situation of, why aren't they out here helping us right now? We're a little short-handed. We could use them. Where are they? What are they doing? Well, they're doing maybe something behind the scenes that's going to help in the success of that team. But if we all do not understand our role and the roles of the other people, then it creates a wedge. So clearly defined roles. Set your expectations and your standards. My expectation is we're going to complete this job or this project by December 1. My expectation is you're going to show up on time and you're going to do your role. Whatever that is, you set your expectations and people understand what's expected of them to perform. And when we all know the expectations, again, focus on working towards that common goal. And the standards, bring everyone up to your standards. Don't reduce your standards. We can't show favoritism. We need to treat everybody the same. And when we have our standards in place and we break those, we're now negotiating them. They're not standards anymore. They're now a negotiable. So set your standards. Working well together, attending the meetings at this time, expectations, standards, quality of work, what you're looking for them to output. Another component that helps with a high performance team and a virtual team is give permission to take action. Empower the team. At this point, establish their knowledge level. When we can establish that they have the ability to make some decisions, especially virtual, when I can't be right there for you to ask me that question, give them authority, empower them to be able to make some decisions, because it helps strengthen the team and get you to that goal.